Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I heard you. Good afternoon. Please welcome the President and CEO of the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association, David N. Taylor.
Thank you very much, Loman, and thanks to all of our conference attendees and participants. It's wonderful to have you here. I have the great privilege of also being the chairman of the Pennsylvania Leadership Council. I've been attending these events going back to 1993, so it's very heartening to see how it has flourished, not just to be sustained, but actually to grow and become more impactful as the years have gone on. And I just want to note, that our constitutional order depends on citizens upholding their responsibilities. That yes, that we have rights, but also we have responsibilities as Americans, and that part of that is choosing to be informed and to be involved. And outdoors, it is an absolutely gorgeous day. And I know we'll all be able to get to it in a little while, but for now, folks being indoors in a ballroom to listen to speakers, it's a testament to your seriousness of how you take those responsibilities, and in its own way, it reflects how much you love our country and love American liberty. So thank you for choosing to be involved. Thank you for choosing to live life with your brain turned on. And thank you for being here with us today. So to begin the program, I want to introduce, to give our invocation, Pastor Tammy Falsick.
Good afternoon, Pennsylvania Leadership Council attendees. It's good to see everybody this afternoon hanging in there. Hasn't it been a great conference so far? A really great conference. All right, so I'd ask you now to bow your head and let us go before the throne of our great God this day. Father God, we acknowledge this day your sovereignty over all there was, is, and will ever be. So this day, once more, we place the future of our Commonwealth, our country, the world into your capable hands, yielding to your will for our future with complete trust that you have already worked out the path before us, no matter political persuasion or divide. We recall, Father, this day how Jesus prayed that you and he, that you would be united as one. And so we pray as well that we may become as one in our state and in our nation, united, so we once more are able to declare with all truth that we are one nation under God, the one who leads us in all we endeavor to do. We thank you, Father, for the blessing now of our time together this weekend, and pray for your continued blessings upon all gathered here this afternoon. May you open our minds to hear the voices you have destined to speak before us this day, so we are better able to understand the part you call us to partake for the betterment of all people in this great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, while remembering, Father, your call to love you first in all we do, and then to love our neighbors as ourselves. So help us, gracious God, to live into these commandments with the willingness to not only to serve the people here in this great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but to please you as we do, so others may see you in us. And so we offer this prayer in the name of our great high priest, Jesus the Christ, and all your children said, amen. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you very much, Reverend. And if you would please rise and join me now as we pledge allegiance to America's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks very much. Please be seated. Well, now I have the great privilege of introducing our featured speaker, Joe Concha, one of the most visible faces on Fox News and Fox Business, appearing hundreds of times on the network per year. Programs where you can catch Joe include Hannity, Jesse Watters Primetime, Fox and Friends, America's Newsroom, Outnumbered, Varney and Company, Kudlow, and Mornings with Maria. Joe is also a rotating co-host on The Big Weekend Show and has co-hosted the #1 show on cable, The Five. Joe is also a senior writer at the Washington Examiner and a New York Times best-selling author. A father to Cameron and Liam and husband to ER doctor Jean Eileen. He is a longtime resident of New Jersey. We're glad to welcome him on this side of the river. Please welcome Joe Concha.
That was nice. How's lunch? Or is it breakfast? What are we at now? It's kind of an in-between time, right? You had the breakfast. Okay, now we're on to hopefully not a liquid brunch here. Thanks to everybody for being here. This is a great event. But I hate to start off on a solemn note, but if we could just bow our heads for a moment and let's just honor the, oops, not that one. Let's see, sorry about that. Trying to get the next one up. Oh, I got to use this thing. Sorry about this. Let's all bow our heads for the political career of Eric Swalwell. May have heard of what's happened to the wannabe governor of California. 12 Democrats now, including Hakeem Jeffries, including Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, have all told him they want him to step down right now as a gubernatorial candidate in California and likely as a congressman as well. So, I mean, I've always said, if a girl named Fang Fang approaches you and says, hey, why don't we grab dinner? That's probably a red flag. Like a communist red flag. Fang Fang, I don't know. That's not a very trustworthy thing, no question. But here we are at the, if I could point this thing right, there we go, 250th anniversary of the country, which is just, you know, amazing. And there's going to be so many great things that go on this year, including the fact that in Times Square, they're going to have the ball drop on July 4th, which in my lifetime, I've never seen. It's only been a New Year's Eve thing. They're going to have a live MMA fight on the south lawn of the White House. That's very cool. They're going to have Indy 500 racing, or F1, I should say, within Washington, D.C. The World Cup will be here as well. It's going to be a very exciting time. But when we think back about what our founders always searched for, always wanted this country to be, we are seeing the Republic under attack. We see the Republic under attack by the Democrat Party, which is not the Democratic Party that I wrote a book once called Progressively Worse, Why Today's Democrats Ain't Your Daddy's Donkeys. And I did my research. It's a great title. Thank you. Came up with myself. And I went back and I looked at JFK, for example, and John F. Kennedy was for tax cuts during a recession that he inherited from Eisenhower. He was for obviously beefing up the military, staring down Khrushchev. He was for a merit-based system and not for affirmative action. Does that sound like a Democrat to you or MAGA? No, and his approval rating was 70% before he was tragically killed in Dallas in November of 1963. Then you even look at Jimmy Carter. We had a Democratic president in our lifetimes that was pro-life. Now there's maybe one person in all of Congress and the Senate that's pro-life on the Democratic side. Bill Clinton, bad person, pretty smart president, however. Worked with Newt Gingrich on a balanced budget amendment. Imagine that, it's not spending what you don't have. That's good. The era of big government's over. Welfare reform, and he won 2 elections. First one, Ross Perot aided, sure. Second one, very easily, because he worked with the other side and did common sense things that brought his party to the center. Now, the party is unrecognizable. And Kalshi, which is a betting market, and sometimes more accurate than most polls, finds that Democrats now have the highest chance of taking back the House in November, the Senate, and then the White House. 43% odds on that. It's the highest it's ever been. What will happen if that happens? Well, the problem is that there is no more Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin to stop Democrats from, through simple majorities, changing a lot of things like, for instance, nuking the filibuster, right? They will do that the minute they get back into office. What that does is they don't need 60 votes in the Senate. They don't need a supermajority. Therefore, just with even 50 votes and the vice president, if they have full power, they will vote unanimously, and they will do some radical things to this country. And again, we look back, America 250, and we think about what the founders wanted. The filibuster existed for a reason, or exists still, I shouldn't say in past tense. But it just basically prevents the party in power, even with a slim majority, from radically changing the country. So what will Democrats do? Well, first, they're going to add Washington and Puerto Rico as states, which means automatically 4 Democratic senators. All right. Something like 11% of Washington, D.C. voted for Donald Trump in the last election. Puerto Rico obviously will vote Democrat as well. So you'll suddenly have almost certainly a permanent majority in the Senate, no matter how well Republicans perform, because they did great in the 2024 election. They still only got to 53. So add 4, that's a big problem. They'll abolish the Electoral College. No doubt about that. And if that happened, let's say 26 years ago, you wouldn't have President George W. Bush. Al Gore would have won that election, right? You may have had Al Gore for 8 years. And then who knows where the country goes from there. And then in 2016, you don't have a President Donald Trump. He didn't win the popular vote during that election. So they know that their odds are up if they do that. And again, think of it, America 250 and what the founders were thinking with the Electoral College. They did not want large population centers controlling how our country ultimately voted for a president. This way, what candidate would ever even set foot in Iowa if they didn't have to, right? Or set foot in a place like New Hampshire or South Carolina. The campaigning would go on in California, Illinois, New York, maybe Texas and Florida. And again, they know that this would be an advantage to them, and it completely defies what the founders wanted, which was not a federalized system where it's just popular vote or done. This gives small states representation and therefore their needs. What else do we have if they win? Well, if the SAVE Act fails, okay, and this is a story, if you look at the date, I know it's a little bit small. That's April 11th at 6 a.m. There's a column that I wrote last night after dinner, after I hosted my radio show. I don't know, I like to work, it's a weird thing. But seriously, if the SAVE Act fails, then we could have the best candidates, but I think a lot of you out there would say, hey, look, we gave you the presidency, we gave you the Senate, and we gave you the Congress, and you still can't pass the one thing we really, really want. So at this point, I was always anti-nuke filibuster. Now I'm on the other side where here's what's going to happen. Democrats are going to do this no matter what if they get back into power. So you might as well do this first because it's going to happen. I don't like it. That's not what this country was founded on. But these are the rules that we've seen now from Democrats, where they literally tried to jail President Trump during the last campaign. It didn't work, obviously. Now, meanwhile, if we move on from here for real quick. And Trump obviously saying that this is the most popular bill to ever go before Congress. 85% of people support voter ID in elections. They support, obviously, showing that you're an American citizen when you want to vote. If Democrats don't have these two things playing for them, in other words, Kamala Harris, the only states that she won were states that had very low restrictions or no restrictions in terms of voting where you didn't even have to show an ID. All right, so more states are doing it, thankfully, but the SAVE Act has to pass, and that means nuking the filibuster probably or going through reconciliation. Either way, if this doesn't pass, I think enough people, 10, 15, 20%, will be, you know what, we gave you guys a chance, screw you, I'm staying home. And it's because it's hard enough already to get people out during Trump elections, that's certainly for sure. Aforementioned best-selling book, it's called The Greatest Comeback Ever. It's interesting because when I met Trump down in Mar-a-Lago, it was right before the book was going to come out. He goes, what's the cover look like? I said, well, and before I could answer, he says, I bet you they told you to go with the assassination photo, didn't they, in Butler? I said, well, yeah, they said that's the iconic photo. He goes, no. He goes, hopefully you went with McDonald's. And sure enough, I'm like, well, sir. And I showed him the cover, and he's like, wow, yeah, that's my favorite photo. And it's so true, right? Because that encapsulates the campaign completely. Just a little about me, by the way. As mentioned, that's the wife, Dr. Jean Reedy. Ran track at Georgetown. We'll get to that in a moment. And now is an ER doctor. And then my kids, Cameron and Liam, who have like 8 games today that I'm missing, and I'm getting guilted literally as we speak, including for my son that says, you have to take me to McDonald's when you get home. Okay, fine. It's all about bribery. That's Liam when he was first born. And you know, it's funny because his birthday's coming up and he's going to turn 11. And I'm like, whoa, wait, where'd the years go? You guys know how this feels, right? And I remember when I was in the hospital with my wife when she was going to deliver, and we decided we weren't going to name the kid until he came out of the womb because you want to look at his face first, right? And you look at the face and you say, he looks like an X, right? So the doctor, it's a C-section, unfortunately, pulls Liam out, holds him up, and says, "Congratulations, Dad, it's a boy." And then I'm looking at him, and then I look down, and I go, "Wow, and what a boy." And the doctor says, no, sir, that's the umbilical cord. You got to cut that. I said, "Oh, right." I mean, he was half Irish. It kind of makes sense. I totally get it. So my wife says, she's Irish and Scottish. And she says, "Liam's a great, strong name. He looks like a Liam. Let's go with that classic name, Liam." And I said, "Honey, I agree. Liam's great." I said, "But you know what? I'm looking at those eyes. I'm looking at that jawline." I said, let's go Brandon. Let's go Brandon. And this is 2015. She says, "I don't know, honey. I got a really bad feeling about that name." So Liam won out. She carried the baby for 9 months. She has veto power. That was the end of it. Now, it could have been worse because when my daughter was born, unfortunately, my aunt, who was very, very close to me, grew up right around the corner, was almost like a second mom to me. I wanted to name my daughter after her, right? And of course, we go through the same thing. My wife goes, "Oh, she looks like a Cameron." We'll get Cameron up here real quick, right? I'm like, "Oh, Cameron's such a sweet name. Cameron Diaz, love her. I could go with that." And then I said, "But, with my aunt, though, I think it would be a great tribute to her if we named Cameron after my aunt, Karen." Same reaction from my wife. I got a real funny bad feeling about that name. So we could have had a Brandon and a Karen, which we probably would have to move to New Zealand or something like that. So that would have been the end of that. But speaking of kids, I know that Charlie spoke here. I believe it was 2018. I think I saw it on the board. Yeah. He never got here. Oh, you had it on the board. He got called to a meeting at the White House. I did shoot for Donald Trump. Okay. Well, you know what? That's 8 years ago, which would have made Charlie 23 years old. And imagine that. You're being dispatched to the White House. This guy, 18 years old, where I'm thinking about where am I going to go on spring break. This guy forms Turning Point USA, millions of followers, obviously meets Erica, has his 2 beautiful kids, and gunned down at Utah Valley University on September 10th of last year. But Charlie, he does this interview at one point, and this is in June of last year. June. Right? He's 31 years old. And the interview asked him, and not in any sort of hostile way, "What do you want your legacy to be?" Which is an odd question to ask a 31-year-old, right? And Charlie didn't even hesitate. He says, "My faith and my family." And then the interviewer says, "Well, what about, Turning Point, that movement?" He goes, "That's been great. And that's awesome to make a difference." He goes, "But it's about faith and it's about family." And you look at the way Trump voters and Kamala voters split. If you are a male Trump Gen Z voter, your number 1 and number 3 priorities in terms of what you deem your life to be successful is marriage and kids, with career in the middle, because obviously they all kind of go hand in hand, right? You have to support them in some way. Kamala voters, however, at 11 and 13, marriage and kids in terms of priorities. Female Kamala voters. So that's kind of the cultural shift that we're seeing here at this point, where it seems that more and more Democrats are anti-family, more the childless cat ladies that Tucker Carlson, J.D. Vance told Tucker Carlson on his show. And that's kind of the war we're at this point. And when people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez say, "I don't think I ever want to have kids because climate change is going to kill them anyway, so why bother?" People are actually listening to this. I mean, back in 1965, the average family had something like an average of 2.6 children per family. Now we're barely above 1. So our society is starting to crumble a bit because when you are a parent or you're not a parent, you can't pass on your values to another generation. You're going to have a lot of people out there who then will lash out at the government for their lives not being fulfilled and happy. And maybe that's how Zohran Mamdani gets elected in New York City, for example. So that's where we're at with that. But anyway, the book is the greatest comeback ever. People say, "Well, how did you write this? Because how'd you know Trump was going to win?" Basically, it was a bet, to be honest with you. I looked at Biden, I looked at Trump in February of 2024, and I said, all right, Trump's going to win this. I mean, the country's going in a horrible direction. Joe Biden, clearly the elevator is not going to the penthouse at this point. I don't care how many felony counts are against him. I think Trump, people have a nostalgia for his years, and he's probably going to win. So I contact the Trump campaign. I said, "Hey, I know you're having a rally in Wildwood, New Jersey. Love to go. Never been to a Trump rally before because unlike Pennsylvania, we don't really get, political rallies in New Jersey because it's so blue." So they're like, sure. And I'm like, "Can I get a ride?" And they said, yeah, we'll arrange for that. So I figured they're going to get me like UberX or something like that, like something nice, because my car wasn't running all that well at that time. And they said, no, you're going to go to LaGuardia Airport. You're going to meet the Trump plane. I'm like, all right, that's a ride. I can handle that. So meanwhile, I coach my kids' teams in the morning. I'm starving when I get there. It's like 2 o'clock. I'm like, all right, this guy had Trump steaks, right? This guy like has brands. Like, what are we going to eat? Some lobster tails. Like, what's going to be on the plane? Yeah, Wendy's. That's an actual photo. Yeah, you would say why not McDonald's? Well, because there's no McDonald's in LaGuardia Airport, apparently. So, yeah, we flew down on that. That was kind of cool. And then those are my seats. Like, that's actually my photo from Wildwood. And I was front row with Lawrence Taylor and Otis Anderson. They were big deals with the Giants way back when. So I found that to be cool alone. But what I noticed was that behind Trump, the boardwalk was still operating. The rides, many of them were still operating. I'm thinking to myself, how are they allowing this? Did they vet these people? And then you look at the crowd that was there. For example, they allowed a plane to fly over the head of the stage. I'm like, how are they allowing that plane to do that? How do we know who's in that plane? I don't care if it's a friendly banner that's behind there. Terrorists can be pretty smart. This is the most targeted man in the world. I'm writing down my notes. And I even talked to my wife afterwards. I go, I did not feel that this thing was very safe, because we all know that guns with scopes from all that distance away, you don't, and it's a beach, so it's a clear shot. There's no buildings, there's no trees, there's nothing. So I found that to be disturbing, and that was May of 2024. So then in June, I fly down to Atlanta for the presidential debate. And again, this is going to be the big night, and Biden's going to do great, and Trump is going to implode. It's going to be a big comeback. And then that happens. Where it's just like, oh boy. I mean, it was like a Tyson fight back in the 80s. Within 90 seconds, you knew that this thing was over. Trump with the famous line, I don't know what he just said. I'm not sure he knows what he just said, right? After he said that he beat Medicare to death or something like that. So Biden obviously out a couple of weeks later. But before he's out, on July 8th of 2024, he says, it's time to put Donald Trump in a bullseye, unquote. Sitting president of the United States said that. July 8th is 5 days before Butler, Pennsylvania, where I was just a couple of weeks ago. Even met a woman there that was sitting right next to the stage, and she literally can hear a bullet whiz over her head. I mean, this is just crazy stuff. So there's Trump in Butler, hot day, clear day. And then before you know it, I'm about to go on the big weekend show. I'm writing, I had my notebook out because he's supposed to announce at this rally that J.D. Vance was going to be his vice president. So I wanted to be there to document it and everything. And then suddenly it looks like he's getting stung by like a mosquito or a hornet or something. Then obviously he's down for like a good 94 seconds, I think it was. And you don't know what is happening at this point. And then obviously gets up. And it's funny because when I interviewed the president, I said, my dad actually asked me, he goes, what's the first question you're going to ask him? I said, I want to know, Mr. President, when you were hit and you know there's blood on your face, what compels you to get up in that moment, stand above your Secret Service, not knowing if there's a second shooter out there? You just don't know. And he didn't even pause. He said, Joe, I knew my son was watching, and I knew my wife was watching. I knew the country was watching. I knew the world was watching, and no one was going to stop this movement. I had to show up and show strength. He said, there was a stretcher on that stage. He said, there's no effing way I was going on that stretcher. Fight, fight, fight. It's the most ballsy thing I think we've ever seen in our lives, right? It's crazy. And meanwhile, again, do we have any answers around this? Can anybody explain how a 19, 20-year-old kid got on the one building that had line of sight to the president 175 yards away with a scope as a 2-inch putt, and no one bothered to get on the roof? He hid a rifle behind an air conditioner, and no one walked the buildings, the one places where you probably should check out. A long rifle he put behind the air conditioner, and he was able to hide it there. Flew a drone over the Butler site a day before. This all happened. And who was the Secret Service guy? Because I still don't know to this day, who knew that there was a threat out there for 45 minutes in Thomas Crooks and still said, you know what, Mr. President, break a leg, go on out there. You shut that thing down. You get him out of there. You get him off the grounds. And then you find the threat. And then if you want to go back and do the speech, fine. Somebody sent him out there. And that's what bothers me to this day. That's all just kind of been forgotten. And Thomas Crooks gets shot, and then it's like Osama bin Laden. His body's cremated within 2 days. We have no answers around this whatsoever. Has the family really, truly been interrogated? And how'd this kid have all these phones? I mean, again, so many answers at this point. This kid outflanked the Secret Service and local law enforcement, and we don't know how he did this without any military training? Come on. So that bugs me to this day. Meanwhile, here's how our media covered it after it happened. Trump taken away after loud noises at rally. There's literally blood on his face next to it. Does a loud noise cause that? Did Trump have a ketchup packet that accidentally went off? I mean, what the hell is that? But that's our media, and that's the way it goes. And then in September, Ryan Ruth, remember him? This guy sat for 18 hours in a sniper's nest near Trump International. I did a speech there back in May, and I walked that area where it was. And I'm like, wait, the Secret Service didn't walk the golf course where the president or the most targeted man in the world, a candidate at the time, was about to play and couldn't find a guy that had rifles, had tactical gear, hid in that nest for 18 hours and no one spotted him? What the hell's going on here? Because at some point, you get past incompetence and you think something else, and we have not had enough answers around that. We talk about that a lot in the book. Then, as crazy as this whole campaign was, we go to the RNC 2 days later after Trump is shot in Butler, and obviously that's where he nominates J.D. Vance. And the best part is that I'm in the green room at one point and about to go on Jesse's show, and then this person comes up behind me and starts cracking my bones. And he gets in my ear and he goes, "I love your work, brother. I watch you every day." It was Hulk Hogan. I'm like, I can't believe it. I watched Rocky III with my kid like 3 days before that. I'm like, Thunder Lips. Oh, but he was such a nice guy, and it's such a shame that he passed because he seemed like he was in such great shape. He was. But, that was great. And then like 10 seconds later, because things are totally surreal at this point, somebody else across the room, "Hannity says you should have your own show. When's that happening, Concha?" And sure enough, that was Dennis Quaid. It's like, where am I? This is better than the Oscars, Meanwhile, Dennis is 71 years old. How is that 71 years old? Somebody want to explain that to me? Well, I found out in a hurry. He goes, "I want you to meet my wife." And I honestly thought it was his granddaughter. 31 years old, tall, blonde, 6 foot. I'm like, that's how you stay young. All right. So I have a plan B going in my head right now, in case that needs. I'm only kidding, honey. She may be watching on YouTube right now. Oh, man. But yeah, who else could play Reagan but that guy, right? And just to tell you, I cover media a lot on Fox, right? And one thing I had to talk about was on a place called Rotten Tomatoes. Maybe a lot of you go there. When you want to see a movie, it tells you what critics think and the average score of their rating, so to speak, of a movie, and then it tells you what audiences think, right? And in this case, the movie Reagan got a 13% out of 100 approval by critics, movie critics, because they all hate conservatives, they all hate Reagan, so therefore they're going to say it was a horrible movie. Then you look at the audience score, 98%. A little bit of a contrast there. I mean, even Forrest Gump, Shawshank, that got like 96. So just saying, that's even in movie critic circles, there is bias. So then July 21st, Joe Biden finally drops out and Kamala Harris is installed. Now, here's the best part. Again, I'm talking about America 250 here. What do Democrats run on most? We are here to save democracy. By installing your Democratic candidate without one vote from the public, because that's what you did, right? They could have held a lightning primary. They could have had voters at least weigh in. Nope. They chose Kamala because that's where the money was at that point. Now, the funny thing is that she had a big decision to make, right? Who's going to be her running mate? It could be your governor, who's had some very wonderful words said about him this week, Josh Shapiro, right? And by the way, I looked this up, and it's very interesting. With Stacey speaking last night, his approval rating is now down to 46% in this state. You say, well, that's still pretty good. The problem was he was at 62 just a year ago. He is going in a south direction in a big hurry. Only 39%, yeah. Only 39% of people in the Commonwealth believe the state is going in the right direction. 20% say that their finances are more better off than they were a year ago, Pennsylvania voters. So there is a huge opportunity here. This guy is portrayed as a moderate, a great speaker, could be president. I don't know. It's almost like Kamala. The more you get to know him and the more he governs, the more people don't like it. So this is going to be a turnout election here in Pennsylvania, no question. But there's a lot to hit here as far as the numbers, at least that I've seen. But anyway, at the time, Shapiro was at 62%, and Kamala could have chosen him, could have chosen Pete Buttigieg, all right? Because he's really smart or something. But instead, she goes through the whole calculus. Instead of taking a guy from a state she needs to win, or maybe somebody young that could, appeal to younger voters, she went with this guy. goofy 80s sitcom dad, Tim Walz, right? The guy who wanted to have his anniversary on the massacre in Tiananmen Square so he and his wife could have a day to remember by. I swear that is a quote, right? A guy who said that he was in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square riots when he was back in Nebraska. The guy who said he had been to war zones when the closest he got was Italy during the Iraq War before he ditched his National Guard unit. The guy who doesn't know, and this was most offensive to me as a former football player, not professional, mind you, that AOC in a video game runs a mean pick six. You don't run pick sixes. It just kind of happens. So that really bugged me. So anyway, they said that vice presidential debates didn't mean anything, but J.D. Vance had this look on his face the whole time, like, oh, this is too easy, right? This is Michael Jordan in a dunk contest. Like, I mean, come on. And I think that really changed the whole campaign because then you saw that, oh, Trump and J.D. are the normies and Kamala and Tim Walz are the weirdos. And obviously, again, how do you choose this guy? You don't need Minnesota. Minnesota hasn't gone red since 1972. And yet this is the guy they went with. Now we see all the fraud and everything else that's going on there. He's not running again for governor in Minnesota. So, but it's just amazing that he was just a few swing states away from being a heartbeat from the presidency. Think about that. Sleep tight. All right. So anyway, so then I have to go on TV and then talk about Kamala's media tour. That's going to be fun. And she doesn't do any interviews the first 6 weeks of her campaign, not even with MSNBC, not The View, nothing. So then finally, she goes on this blitz with Howard Stern, Stephen Colbert, and The View. And this is the most delicious thing about this campaign ever, that The View bought down Kamala Harris's campaign. Amazing. Because she's asked a question. What's the one thing you would do differently from Joe Biden over the last 4 years? And she looks to the sky and goes, you know, nothing really comes to mind. What? It's the one question you exist to answer, and you couldn't. She dropped the ball then. At that point, I went on TV. I'm like, it's over. How could you say it's over, Joe? The polls say it's really tight. I go, no. This thing is over. Then the Al Smith dinner. Oh, that was fun. I went to that too. And again, this is the Catholic vote where no president has ever won the presidency without winning the Catholic vote, right? So what does Kamala do? She sends a video, doesn't even go. And she finds Molly Shannon, who was relevant back during the Clinton years, to do a skit mocking Christians. How stupid was this campaign? And they had $2 billion to spend. Meanwhile, this is Trump's, I mean, he is in the zone here, right? This is the Don Rickles of Al Smith dinners. Like, it's a roast. And the one line that I remember that he had, which was like the greatest thing ever, he says, you know, Democrats keep telling me that men can't have periods. And I didn't believe him. Until I met Tim Walz. Which, you know, it might be accurate. So, like, I'm at home. I'm like, ask my wife, like, do I need a 2-drink minimum to watch this? I mean, this guy's good. And he owned the news cycle for 3 days while Kamala got killed for not going, including by Cardinal Dolan. Like, I don't know why she didn't show up. It's an insult to Catholics. And it was. So, again, we're getting close to the finish line now. Oh, yeah, white dudes for Harris. Remember that? That was another Trump joke. He says, you ever hear about these white dudes for Harris? He goes, they're all voting for Kamala, but I don't mind because all the wives and all their wives' boyfriends are going to vote for me. Deadpans it. Perfect. So, anyway. Then there was the aforementioned McDonald's trip, which, I mean, this was not far. Lancaster, was it, guys? Is that where he was? Bucks County. Okay, I'm thinking of the name of the actual town, but thank you. I knew it was an L. Thank you for that. So Bucks County, he's working the fries, you know, he's working the drive-through. And, you know, here's the thing about what made this so genius. I talked to Susie Wiles about this for my book. And she said, you know, that was the most viral videos and photos that we had from the entire campaign. I said, why is that? She said, because Kamala could go on CNN or 60 Minutes or do a speech at the Ellipse, and it's forgotten like a fart in the wind in 5 minutes. I'm like, that's a very colorful language. Okay, yes. She said, this, however, got into places like TikTok and all these places that young men occupy that don't watch CNN or CBS or watching speeches at the ellipses. And it got to places that we can't get with all the political ads in the world. I go, wow, that's pretty genius. Plus, Democrats keep calling him Hitler over and over again. I'm pretty sure that Hitler never worked at McDonald's. Like, how are you going to square that? Because Trump's a happy warrior, and, oh, no, he's Hitler. Really? Boy. Hitler definitely didn't work there. I'm pretty sure it's photoshopped. I'll have to check that. Maybe that's fake news. But of course, our wonderful media, was Donald Trump's McDonald's shift staged? Oh, gee, I don't know. He was nearly killed twice. We'll just let anybody through. They pull up in the drive-through. I mean, these are actual headlines. This is why, like, we talked about how I'm on Fox so much, because there's stupidity every day that I get to talk about. I get paid to talk about it. It's awesome. Thank you. All right, then Madison Square Garden. Yay, another rally that's near my home. This is great. That's him walking up on stage. I got to be backstage. I got to report on Fox that night. And, it's amazing. 5 hours before Trump goes on, a guy named Tony Hinchcliffe, a comedian you've never heard of before, made a joke about the garbage problem in Puerto Rico, which is real, right? It's an island. They can't seem to get rid of it, and there's just overflows everywhere. Well, now the media went with this whole narrative that maybe you hated inflation above 9%. Maybe you hate an open border. Maybe you hate the economy failing. Maybe you hate endless wars in Ukraine. But you're going to change your vote to Kamala because a comedian you never heard of made a joke about Puerto Rico. Sorry, I went full Biden there with the whisper thing. But yeah, that's what came out of that. And then Hillary Clinton even said that by having the rally at Madison Square Garden, that was like an ode to the Nazis, because back in 1939, when I guess The Wizard of Oz came out, the Nazi party had a rally there. So therefore, Trump was using 60 chests to talk to his supporters through a dog whistle saying, yeah, I'm having it at Madison Square Garden because it's like the Nazis were. Except since that time, that's where Marilyn Monroe sang to Jack Kennedy, happy birthday. That's where Frazier beat Ali in the first of 3 great fights. Let's see. That is also where, oh, yeah, Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton had the national convention in 1992. In fact, the DNC was there 4 times. But yeah, it was Trump trying to speak to the Nazis in his party. And that's Tony Hinchcliffe, again, the guy you never heard of that told the joke. So then 2 days later, because this is the craziest campaign ever, Biden goes on TV and calls all Trump supporters garbage. All Trump supporters garbage, like the deplorable thing we didn't learn from, right? So they go through this whole thing. So what does Trump do? It's so genius. He finds a garbage outfit. They find a truck in Green Bay, Wisconsin, slap a Trump thing on it, and then that goes viral for 2 days. And Kamala has to answer for, hey, your boss said that all Trump supporters are garbage. Do you believe that? So again, this was, when you look back on it, the moves were genius. They really were. And then finally, 2 days before the election, in Iowa, the gold standard, her name is Ann Selzer, said that Kamala Harris was leading Donald Trump in Iowa by 3 points. The same state that Trump won by 14 points in 2016, won by 13 points in 2020. Nope, now Kamala's going to erase that entire deficit in Iowa, which is like going to an NHL game if you want to find the number of black people that are in Iowa at this point. In other words, like this is, or a Springsteen concert. I know it's a fun game to play. But the point is that she's not winning Iowa just the same way that Trump's not winning California. It was a ridiculous poll. I could not wait to go on Fox to dunk on that one. Sure enough, it's election night, and this is the greatest moment ever. This is Jake Tapper talking to John King, and King's like the Bill Hemmer of CNN, where he just goes over maps and counties and tries to tell you, like, what's going on as far as trends. And here, Tapper says, are there any counties in the country that are receiving more votes for Kamala than Biden did in 2020? And at that moment, that's where King said, not one. And that's why the screen is blank. It's all black. And Tapper's like, wait, not one? Not one. So that was the end of that. Trump is elected president, 2:16 in the morning, wins quite easily, as a matter of fact, wins the popular vote, wins every swing state, as I predicted on Fox, by the way. There's video of it, so I just want to make that very clear. And that was that. So, but yeah, that's how the map looks right now at this point. And that's the country that we live in. I think we live in a country where it's almost entirely red, except for those blue dots, which are cities. And the cities are going more and more socialist, and the rest of the country is going more and more common sense and normal. But that seems to be the direction that we are heading in. The good news is that Kamala Harris kind of announced yesterday that she's thinking very strongly about running for president. So, yeah. Outside of a teleprompter, she is a human Chernobyl, and she's somehow getting worse, which is really remarkable. So you'll have her, you'll have Gavin Newsom, let's see, Fred Flintstone, I'm sorry, J.D. Pritzker, Buttigieg again, and AOC. Those are your choices. I mean, and I hear AOC has a chance. In Pennsylvania, when you're against fracking, even John Fetterman kind of realized this, and you're against all offshore drilling, or in Michigan, where you're against or you're for electric vehicle mandates, or in Wisconsin, where you're against cow flatulence with all the farmers there, or in Arizona, where you're for an open border, yeah, you're not winning those swing states now, are you? So I keep hearing that. I just find it amusing. Anyway, Kamala Harris ended up going through, it turned out to be more closer to $2 billion in the span of 15 weeks. Imagine if she ran the government and the economy. Just for, whenever you hear about Democrats talking about how they know how to make things more affordable, they couldn't even spend correctly on this. Again, 15 weeks, $1.5 billion, really incredible. So anyway, the good news is that the bet paid off because now I had a book that I actually can put out there if Trump lost. I don't think anybody really wanted to read that. So thank you. Boy. Then again, I did have, let's see, the Chiefs beating the Eagles. So you never quite know. You never quite know in terms of that. Sorry, Mahomes, just had a thing. But anyway, so here's the funny part. I interview the president, and then 5 minutes later, I get an invite to go down to Mar-a-Lago for New Year's Eve. I'm like, we got to go. All right, this sounds great. And then we're actually sitting at the president's table, which is really, really cool. So it's Melania, Trump, Musk, JD, Usha, Jordan Peterson, Mrs. Musk, my wife, and me. I said to her, I go, who doesn't belong at this table right now? This makes no sense, So it was funny. But it was really loud. So you get a couple of minutes with the president. So my wife and I go over to him, like he kind of calls us over. And he sees me, he goes, oh, let me see that cover again. And, I got the cover. And then he almost, not pushes me out of the way, but he goes, is this the runner? And he's pointing to my wife. And I go, whoa. I go, you remember that? He goes, yeah. He goes, you told me when you interviewed me a couple of weeks ago that she ran track at Georgetown and she was really angry about all these women playing against men in sports, and that, all the wives that she spoke to also, who maybe even aren't very political, hate that, and they'll probably vote for Trump. The guy has a memory of an elephant. It really is remarkable, So then they're chit-chatting away. I'm like a third wheel on a date, like, okay, I'll talk to Melania, I guess. Is that Versace? Like, what do you say, Where's Barron? So that was kind of funny, but that's how my wife looked that night. So I guess I understand, right? Looked pretty good. That's right outside of Mar-a-Lago. Now, Nate, what we're going to do here, before you play it, so we sit down, and Trump starts to get up and he starts to do the YMCA, right? And my wife is to my left at this point, and you'll see around the 8 seconds mark exactly what sort of message that he sends to her. All right, Nate, play it. So Melania, Elon awkward, like, oh, maybe I should get up. Yep, now watch Trump. Sees my wife. And, oh, come on. Melania's right there. So my wife says, hey, would you mind? I said, well, if we're doing an even swap, no. We could do this. All right? I'm sure it's happened to Mar-a-Lago before. We could do it, no question about it. But anyway, again, it's America. It's 250. Let's just protect what they wanted. Protect the things like the Electoral College, like the Supreme Court. What they're going to do after they nuke the filibuster is they're going to turn it from 9 to 15 judges. They'll add 6 liberals, so it's a 9-6 advantage. Again, the thing with Puerto Rico and Pennsylvania, and Puerto Rico, adding 4 more senators. It is a dangerous time right now. And the House has to be held, the Senate especially has to be held, and then the White House in 2028, in the name of common sense and in the name of what our founders originally intended for this country, which is not one-party rule and radical things being pushed and passed based on very, very small minorities. So hopefully we can get there. In the meantime, I want to thank you for having me. You guys are awesome. We'll do it again sometime. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Oh, yeah. Hope it didn't go too long. Thank you. Thanks.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Joe. It's great to have you here. So we're coming down to the last, but one of the most interesting parts of the annual leadership conference, which is the result of the straw poll that I'm sure many of you participated in. And to explain that and to close out our program, I want to introduce Scott R. Davis. He's an elected Pennsylvania State Constable, technology executive, and cybersecurity leader with more than 25 years of experience protecting organizations through both physical and digital security strategies. He's the founder and owner of Solidaris, a managed services and cybersecurity firm focused on helping businesses strengthen their operational resilience through proactive IT management, governance, and security best practices. A longtime friend of the conference, please welcome Scott R. Davis.
Wow. Everyone take a deep breath. Deep breath. Only me to go. I always start off this portion of it as a reflection over the last 3 days, which for me is the last 6 months. It has truly been an amazing journey, and I love seeing what we were able to put together. Some of the more remarkable things is this year, our partnership with the College Republicans. There were over 60 College Republicans that joined us. Huge credit to them. Working with the Young Republicans and the crowd from the Young Republicans, again, huge props to all the work with younger Republican groups and the College Republicans we've had. So over the last 3 days, you've had an opportunity to vote in the 2026 Pennsylvania straw poll. Before I get into the results, I do want to introduce Paul McGuire, the founder of Vote Proof. If he could come out and just say a couple words. Last year, Vote Proof was the first year you did the machines here. So, Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. And thank you to the conference for taking the poll, if you did. And if you took the poll, you would have seen you had an option on there to get a receipt. If you chose to get that receipt, you would have noticed at the bottom there's a code, a random code called a Vote Proof code. Gives you the ability to go online and see that receipt. What does all this mean? I mean, this is a straw poll here, but how does this relate? What we're trying to do, what Vote Proof is trying to do, is help election integrity. It's been a top issue for a long time. People not trusting what happens to their vote. One, you fill out the ballot, you put it in the scanner. Did it read it correctly? Did it flip some votes? Did it intentionally flip some votes? Did I fill it out correctly? The receipt immediately gives you confirmation. It's also part of the next requirements of VV SG 2.0, which is voter verifiability. You need the ability to verify that your vote was read correctly before you cast it. Okay, so it satisfies that requirement, but it also helps your confidence, helps you know, yes, that's my vote. And second, you leave, go home, the results come out, polls are closed, you're wondering, well, did they count my vote? So you go online with your code, you look up your vote, you feel warm and fuzzy again. They counted my vote, right? It got up there. That's great. Who better than to audit your vote than you? Why should someone else audit your own vote? You're the one that knows how you voted. So everyone as a group, who better to audit the election than you? So that's what Vote Proof does, is it provides that ability to audit how the ballot scanners read your vote. It allows, once all that data comes in, it allows to determine if there's any discrepancies between a precinct, between a ballot scanner, between a state. The statistical data collected by individuals like yourself auditing your own vote creates that ability to detect potential fraud or mistakes or confirm the results to prove the vote. And that's what we're doing here. And so our next steps really are to finish the technology of getting it connected to existing ballot scanners that are currently existing or being used out there. So once we do that, then we get an actual trial run in a state, county, and then we go on from there. And hopefully at some point in the near future, when you go to vote, you'll have the option to get a receipt and confirm your own vote. Thank you.
Thank you. So definitely thank you to Vote Proof and the entire Vote Proof team that came out to run this. One, it takes an enormous burden off of my shoulder, as you saw me running around, going, between the hotel and here and there and everywhere. Knowing that they're there taking care of that for us. Thank you very much to the entire Vote Proof. Now, what you really care about. Key points. Over the last 3 days, 207 ballots were collected. We closed right around 10:30 this morning. Voter ID is used. You should have scanned your badge with the iPad there, or they scanned it for you, confirming that you only get one vote. We had 14 states represented. That included Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Virginia, Ohio, New York, Washington, D.C., Connecticut, Florida, Kentucky, Texas, Arizona, and even some from the armed forces in the Pacific were here. So definitely huge props. We are more than just a state conservative conference. We are a regional conservative conference. And we are bringing people in from all of our neighboring states. And that is continuing to happen year over year. So continue to spread that message of what we're doing here in Pennsylvania and how we are improving the conservative movement. And you got the receipt and online verification. All right, so how did you hear about PLC 2026? 64% attended a previous PLC. That's great. Welcome back. 12% of you from a friend. 1% was born over the last conference, right? No. 7% invited from our sponsors. 7% college Republicans. In addition, from the PAGOP, the 500 emails Lohman and I sent over the last 6 months, right? Or 1,000, give take. Young Republican groups, online searches, and most importantly, each and every one of you, when you leave and you talk about how much fun you had from the workshops and the educational references, the brand new inaugural welcome reception with the band. And I looked through some of the photos. You guys looked amazing. But continue to share your PLC experiences with your friends and your family and bring them with you next year. The next question we ask, how many times have you attended the Pennsylvania Leadership Conference? 50%, this is your second to fifth time. 28.9%, this is your first time attending. Welcome for your first conference. 6 to 10 times, 19.3%. I know we had two young Republican volunteers working with us for the first time this year, and it was their first conference, and they couldn't stop telling me how much they enjoyed the event and just overall the enthusiasm and how they're already looking forward to next year. Age distribution, 66 to 74 years of age, 25%, 75 and older, 19%, 56 to 65, 16%, 41 to 55, which I fall into, is 14%, 18 to 25, 14%, 26 to 40, 13%, and 17 and younger, 1%. And we had one baby that, I don't know, did the baby vote? We gave him a badge. Well, it's good. He'll be one. He has his, our ID's the badges. He'll have it next year too. Gender distribution, very similar to last year, 64% male, 35% female. The next slide is probably my favorite slide of the entire presentation because I get to show Pennsylvania red. And the big difference from last year to this year is the entire Southeast is red. The entire Southeast is red. We still need to work on the western portion. There's a couple counties that were here last year that weren't here this year, or at least didn't vote this year. But definitely, we are a united Commonwealth, and we are turning the state red. Even in the big cities, you see Philly, Harrisburg, Scranton, Pittsburgh, those counties are red. We're here, we're attending, and we're taking that message back to our communities. We ask, what is your political ideology? And I've had probably 13 dozen people come up and say, why isn't MAGA a choice? Mainly because it's the same question and the same answers we've had since 2011 when we started the straw poll. But I will try to remember to add MAGA next year. Top two, fiscal conservative, 43%, social conservative, 25%. The additional is traditionalist, 14%. And I'll let you read the rest if you want. The three most important issues facing the Commonwealth: budget, 19%. Election integrity, 18%. Energy, 12%. The next one was immigration before, but abortion jumped up 4 slots and took 9%. Property tax reform at 9%. Welfare fraud, data centers and AI is a new one that was added this year at 4%. Title IX protections for women, 3%, and the rest. would you say that that inflation is having a moderate, significant, or no impact to you? Inflation's still bad. It still hasn't recovered from 4 years previous. But overall, the attendees here, 55% feel inflation is having a moderate impact to their lives, 35% a significant impact, and 10% no impact at all. Next, we asked, do you have confidence in the energy sector's capability to continue meeting the demand for electricity with data centers, electric vehicles, electric this, everything using and consuming more and more electricity? I felt it was a good question and timely. 43% of the attendance feels some confidence. 30% little confidence that they're able to meet the demand moving forward. 8% with high confidence, and 6% had no confidence at all. There are more than enough articles I can point to that our infrastructure for energy needs improvement. It needs help, not just from a cybersecurity standpoint, but an overall capability of generating the power we need to be a manufacturing powerhouse across the globe. Now, why most of you probably stayed. State Treasurer Stacey Garrity, our approval ratings. Stacey Garrity was 4.57 out of 5. Last year, she was 4.47, so she's gone up. State Auditor Tim DeFore, 4.3%. I have to apologize to our amazing Attorney General. He was omitted last year from this survey. So we're just going to say he had the same exact score last year as he did this year. And this year, 4.38%, or 4.38 out of 5. Now, we did something a little different. In years past, I've asked just generally, how is the House and Senate doing? Is the House doing good? Is the Senate doing good? And I was kind of curious if we felt the Republicans were doing as good of a job as we think they are, or if the Democrats really were doing as bad of a job as we think they were. So we broke it out this year. So for the Pennsylvania House Republicans, 3.51. Now, I probably don't need to show this one or many of similar ones. The House Democrats, 1.23. Pennsylvania Senate Republicans, 3.74. Senate Democrats, 1.29. Pennsylvania Supreme Court, 1.85. Governor Josh Shapiro, 1.34. Senator John Fetterman. Now, this was an interesting one. Like, I've heard mixed signals, and I wasn't sure where this one was going to land, and probably right around the middle where I expected, but a 2.98. And Senator Dave McCormick, 4.41. Public safety is a big thing. Being an elected state constable, being a father, running a family here in central Pennsylvania, I always like asking the question, do you feel the community is safer today than it was 5 years ago? And 49% feels it's still more dangerous. 30% of us is unsure, and 21% feels it's safer. Now, I will say from last year, more dangerous is down 11%, and safer is up 6%. So let's just say the people in charge from the federal level are doing a good job reintroducing the rule of law and holding people responsible for their actions. And that's great to see. And I think our community feels the same. Our future outlook for children, do you feel that they are going to be worse off, better off, or about the same as you were growing up? 46% of our attendance feels our children are going to have it worse off than we do. 11% feel they're going to have it better than we do. We have to turn this trend. We're already making progress. Last year, worse off was 50.2%, and better off was right around that 10, 11 mark. The three most important issues facing the United States, this is as a nation: the economy, inflation, 20%, illegal immigration, 18%, government spending, 17%, size of government, 10, and the federal judges at 8. Government spending last year was 21.9%. So that was the number one concern last year. Seeing that drop to number 3 from last year kind of shocked me. Some of the other issues: wars, 5%, right to life, healthcare reform, women's sports, gas prices. And we had some fun write-ins: election integrity, growth of Islam, nuclear war, and unifying the country. Yeah, it's always careful when you allow write-ins. You get some funny answers. Next, we asked, do you support President Trump's actions in Iran? 73% said yes. We then moved on to our nationwide. Do you approve of how ICE is enforcing the current immigration laws? It's the current immigration laws they're enforcing. They're not creating new laws and going out and enforcing them. They're just doing what we haven't been doing. 88% of us feels yes. We approve of how ICE is enforcing the current immigration laws. And I truly hope at some point Donald Trump gets the message and renames it to the National Immigration and Customs Agency, so all the news reporters have to say this nice agent did this. Like right off the bat, the nice agent did this, the nice agent did that. They're bad. Wait, you said they were nice. What is it? No, sorry. I just really wanted to do that little fun one. No. All right. Favorability polls for the House Republicans: 3.57. U.S. House Democrats. There's a little sliver. You may not be able to see it, but 1.15. And remember, I had no 0. You either choose 1 through 5. U.S. Senate Republicans, 3.31. U.S. Senate Democrats. Again, that sliver's there, 1.16. Someone voted at 2, I think. No. U.S. Supreme Court, 3.39. Our Vice President Vance, 4.32. And President Trump, 4.21. Now, before we go to the next slide, we're looking now at 2028. And the field is wide open for 2 important races. 1, the Senate seat held by Fetterman currently, and 2, the presidential seat. So I didn't assume anyone was running. This was a wide open write-in. Mickey Mouse may have gotten a couple of votes, Donald Duck, Ronald McDonald, I don't know. But the early choice candidates for 2028 Senate races, some of the runner-ups, some are in attendance here today. Cliff Maloney, if you want to stand, you were a nominee. Is Doug Mastriano still here? He was a nominee. Loman Henry, you were a nominee. I think all of your kids voted for you. Greg Rothman, John Fetterman, Dan Muser, Stacey Garrity also received, I think, 1 vote for this, but she is dedicated to that governor and us here in Pennsylvania. I heard that loud and clear in her speech last night. But those are the runner-ups. 7% chose Scott Perry. Now, this is truly a write-in. So it wasn't where Scott was a choice. So remember that to gain 7% just off of a write-in without any preconceived votes. So Scott Perry may be our room's favorite choice for that Senate seat. So the next one, early choice candidate for the 2028 presidential race. Now, I will be honest, if you voted and you were in that 1% or less, there was an awful lot of funny ones that were in there. I didn't put all of them. But the runner-ups, Marco Rubio, I felt honorable mention, 34%. So definitely a good portion of it. Ron DeSantis, Cliff Maloney again, everybody. Cliff Maloney, Loman Henry, everybody. I know Loman had the votes of his entire family. I think he bribed them by letting them come. Or the baby voted twice, I heard. But I don't think it surprises anybody. J.D. Vance, 51%. for that. So before we conclude the 2026 Pennsylvania Leadership Conference, I think it is critical on behalf of the entire Pennsylvania Leadership Conference team to recognize the hotel staff for all of the work and energy that they put through over the last 3 days. The security team that wasn't just those that you saw inside the building from the Pennsylvania State Constables, but the partnership with East Pennsboro Police, the state police, and other agencies that were involved. So thank you, law enforcement. To our sponsors from PMA, AFP, Commonwealth Foundation, hosting the welcome reception. This event's not possible with you being those top tier sponsors. To our exhibitors, thank you for coming here year after year and making PLC part of your annual routine. So on behalf of the sponsors and exhibitors, thank you. I again have to thank the straw poll team for taking a burden off my shoulders, but also all the volunteers, which I'm sure you heard my dad say he was my dad. My mom say she was my mom. My sister say she was my sister. My wife, who was here for a little while, but we had a lot of sports, conflicts. My mother-in-law that was here. So it's definitely a family thing. I just didn't have them all vote. So that's why I wasn't a nominee, right? But then also, some of our friends and family like Jolene, who's sitting here, it's not possible without the volunteers that put this all together. So thank you to the volunteers. So with that, you can, one more? The what? The tech crew? The AV team, I cannot forget. They did tell me next year that I would get, maybe some customizations up there. So no, you're right. Thank you, Loman, for that. AV team, thank you guys. The lights worked, video worked. You were able to stream it. I guess it's almost to the point that they're so good, I don't even think about it. Like, if you need an AV crew for anything, talk to them, because we won't even consider anyone else. At least I won't. So with that, sigh of relief. I thank Loman. Thank Loman. He got the presidential, the Senate nod. Loman, Carol, the entire Henry crew that voted. But most importantly, I guess each and every one of you, right? Each and every one of you. All right, so now, sigh, relief, this is the close. Thank you all for attending PLC 2026. Save the date, April 8th through 10th, 2027. We'll see you here.